third round of the 2015 Season 2K World Cup Skip Barber Championship will start in just a couple of moments' time from Phillip Island, down under in Australia. And it will be exclusively live here only on RaceSpotTV.
Truex in the outside, contact made, 56 slides it at a 4, who's going to be at the stripe? Dead even, give it to Ryan Truex. Truex is your winner over Tandy.
The NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing.com, has officially begun.
Cars are lined up on the grid. The iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. We are underway. They all come down into turn one for the first time. Round number 3 of the 2015 Season 2 2K Skip Barber World Cup here on RaceSpotTV sees drivers head to the magnificent, ultra-fast Phillip Island racetrack. Qualifying is pretty much complete and it will be Miko Nassi starting on pole position. We'll run through your full qualifying grid in just 1 moment's time. But this is a racetrack which is fast, it's brutal. Drivers really need to pay attention to it. As we're having a look on board then with Duncan Coppage as he's working himself down towards turn number 4 and 5. We can see here, this is turn number 3 now, that very, very fast left-hander, as we have now actually completed qualifying, so that gives us ample opportunity to run you through your starting grid for tonight's event. It will be Miko Nasi starting on pole position, qualifying time of 1 minute 46.460, 8 1,000ths of a second, the gap between himself and Phillip Labor, who will again start on the outside of that front row of the grid. Frank Winter in third place, and Matthew Daniels on the outside of that second row. Good qualifying by him, with Enzo Cantor in fifth and Luca Guidi in the sixth position. Baybolt Subran in the seventh spot, Fahim Atanides in P number 8. Then you can see Ricardo Ferrer in ninth and Brian Dahl running out your top 10. Flodor in the 11th position, with Paul Lucas in P number 12. And then it's Joey Miller in 13th, Alex Sanders in 14th, Peter Clayson and Johan Holberg in the 16th spot. You can see there just 2 American drivers on row number 7 and 2 Swedish drivers in row number 8. Perfect Pie in 17th position, with Rob Adams alongside him in the 18th spot. Row number 10 will be Scott Hanley on the inside and David Stefani lining up alongside of him. Then you got Duncan Coppage in P number 21, Neil Kemp in 22nd, Francisco Tonin and Paolo Zeroni in P23, 24, then Dustin Kissinger and Edward Cavalier running out your 26 car field here today. As we said, it was Miko Nasi who's got himself to the top of the timing charts as far as qualifying goes, but the question will be, will he be able to get the job done as far as the race goes? So you can see them, the drivers just lining themselves up now, and we will be going racing in just a couple of moments time as the drivers complete their gridding process here. Now pretty much all the drivers are lined up on the starting grid, just waiting for Duncan Coppage. Now all the drivers are lined up, 23 laps of racing here in round number 3 of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup. Engines are revving and we will start right now. Almost perfect symmetry start there by your first couple of rows, but the 188 car getting himself the best run as they storm down towards turn number 1 for the first time. You can see drafting already going. You've got one of the longest straightaways in the entire season, and this is going to play out well throughout this event. But here you can see your couple of rows at the front getting themselves nicely single fast. They work themselves through that ultra fast turn number 1 for the first time. We'll talk about turn 1 and the pit rules for this race over the course of this event, but everyone through the first corner, everyone through turn number 2 by the looks of it. So we're having a look through your mid-pack here as we're right on board with the driver of Ricardo Ferrer, who's currently scored in the 9th place on the racetrack. Long straightaways are the order of the day for the first part of the lap, and it means that you get yourself a good opportunity for passing. We've got that going on right now as Matthew Daniels is being overtaken there. Oh, we got ourselves a driver who's going to cause a big pile up. That is for Fahim Atanides. This may well bring out the safety car as we've got at least 2 drivers involved. Fahim Atanides is involved in it. We've got a couple of others as well going very slowly towards the rear of the pack. I believe that is Duncan Coppage who might have been involved in it. It's actually Dustin Kessinger who's also gone off there. He's at the very rear of the pack. We'll get ourselves a look at that in just one moment's time because they are still stacked up towards the front end of your field. All that incident did was back the field up. As you can see, they are working themselves too wide. So they worked themselves through Lukey Heights for the first time, and I do believe we have slowed it down to still safety car conditions. We'll get that confirmed in one moment's time. But the field is indeed slowed down. This gives us the opportunity to get ourselves a look at the incident then with Fahim Atanides. And this one, I have seen it so many times before. And I think he just caught himself, got himself attacked from the rear, drifted across the inside of the corner, and from there on, it was a melee. We had a couple of drivers involved in that one. We'll get ourselves another look, though, because we only caught the back end of it last time by, so we'll get a complete look, and this is from the front of your field. You see the lights going out. It was a great start to the event as the drivers worked themselves down towards turn number 1 for the first time. It was all going well, but then you can see the field just so bunched up as they often are in these kind of conditions. And we talked about how long this front straightaway is, how fast turn number 1 is. We ride the first couple of corners then along board with Fahim Atanides. You can see him now. This is down in towards turn number 2 on the racetrack. That 180-degree left-hander, but it all starts out. I think it'll be the number 48 driver involved in it as well. As it will be the number 48 car. I think will just tag him on the rear through turn number 3. They come, and then into turn number 4. You see at that point, he actually had a good gap behind him. So something somewhere went a little bit wrong. You can see that number 34 car it was. Enzo Cantor, he was the driver who came across. He was actually, ironically, able to get away from the incident without too much damage, but it caused a chain reaction that got a couple of cars going very, very slowly. Let's have a look then, in front of your field, and it does look as though we are behind the iRacing.com first safety car. It's the first time we've seen it all season, but it means this field will be slowed down. It'll be interesting as far as this does to the fuel number as well. It means that these drivers will probably save themselves about a lap overall. Those who save the most, well, they could end up going about another 2 laps, depending on the length of this caution. You can see the field just cycling itself then behind the iRacing.com first safety car. As well, we've got Ludwig Giddy classified as out of the race in that number 189 car. You saw him upside down in turn number 4. We've got a moment, so we've got the opportunity therefore to show you what happened with him. Let's ride along board then with Giddy, and this is on the exit of turn number 2, that downhill dip in towards turn number 3. You can see he was working himself alongside that number 3 car. Now, it all happened so quickly, so we'll slow it down. We'll get the And1 Design super slow-mo camera up and show you what happened. And here we are, down in towards turn number 3. You can notice that Phillip is getting pushed down to the inside, going on the grass. Once you're on the grass here, it's so difficult to actually get yourself back going, and from there on, well, it's just a T-bone effect. Nothing that the Wicked Kitty can do. Number 3 machine of Matthew Daniels was involved there as well. You can see Daniels in that number 3 car involved in the incident, and that is why we're under a first safety car of the entire season here in the Skip Barber 2K World Cup. And that means we can just step aside for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will be back after this message.
What is it about speed? Do these rivals chase speed because they can? Or because they can't help it? IndyCar. The heart of racing. Go to IndyCar.com for live timing and scoring, upcoming race details, and to join the conversation.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos and danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. Sure, they've got the most accurate tracks and realistic cars out there, but that's just the start. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all are kept in the pits. Not to mention that with over 45,000 active members already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in on the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, the second round of the 2015 Verizon IndyCar Series will see drivers for the first time in series history head over to NOLA Motorsports Park for the Indy Grand Prix of Louisiana. Coverage will start at 2:30 p.m. on the NBC Sports Network in America, and if you're in Europe, outside of the United Kingdom and France, you can catch it on the ESPN player. Mika Nassi then will bring the field back to the green flag here. 20 laps remaining here in the third round of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup. You can see that Mika Nassi trying to allow that pace car a little bit of a gap. He wants to get this one going as the pace car is in. Getting ourselves set to go to green flag racing here at Phillip Island after the first safety car of the season. Green flag is back out and we are once again underway. Phillip has timed this one perfectly. He is almost immediately right up alongside to head himself down in towards that first corner for the first time. Who will be the one who gets it done? It's going to be Lebert alongside. Will he be able to work that high line? The answer is going to be he's going to tuck into line for the time being there. But he was so close to taking that race lead away on the restart. He timed that one absolutely perfectly. As you see behind, you got yourself Winter in the third position, Ente Cantor in fourth. Now, he was the driver who made contact with the one of Fahim Atinides on the opening lap of the race. He does survive. You can see a little bit of damage to the driver's left-hand side of the car and also to the rear wing as Phillip Burr has moved himself to the point, but Miko Nassi trying to go back down the inside in towards turn number 4, and he will go back to the race lead. So that is 2 lead changes in the space of as many corners. Your top 5 drivers are separated by pretty much nothing right now, but then you've got yourself a big gap. Brian Durrell had himself a poor start as we got ourselves a bit more contact there going to the rear foot. Alex Saunders into the wall. His day is going to be done. Getting ourselves a replay of this one then from on board with Alex Saunders, and this was down through turn number 4 and 5, and you see a very late lunge there onto number 24 car. That pushed him off the racetrack. He tried to rejoin. I think he puts the power down and gets himself into all forms of trouble afterwards. But Alex Saunders, oh, he had the number 50 car actually come right across him. That was Joey Miller in that Duff beer car. But, well, we've got ourselves another victim. We do stay green this time by, however, as Miko Nassi works himself towards the start-finish line now. And you can see he's got himself just a couple attempts of a second gap to Phillip Burr. As we have a look with Psycho R 360 camera around, they can see a race leader, and they can see Phillip Burr currently scored in that second place. They start another lap here. This is lap number 4 of this race. We had 2 behind the iRacing.com first safety car. We were talking a moment ago. There is Florian Fodel there around the outside of Brian Dowers. They work themselves through turn number 1. Nice little pass as you can now move the driver of Florian Fodel up 1 position into P7 on the racetrack. And this is a 4-car pack right now. It is a little bit of a smaller field, of course, because it is Easter compared to what you normally see. A number of drivers electing to spend time with their families. But for those of them who are running, we had 26 drivers attempt to start this race. As we're just checking in on this battle going on again, almost close side by side. It's a 3-horse race here, but they can see the battle out front as well. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars. Then you got yourself Florian Fodel leading your second pack of 4 cars, being caught by the number 50 machine of Joey Miller, who kind of leads. He's the driver in the buffer zone. He's got himself a bit of an advantage over Duncan Coppage behind him, but he has got himself a 1.8 second gap to the driver ahead of him, which is Peter Clayson, who is at the very rear of that second pack. We'll get that ticker running along the top of your screen, showing you where your favourite driver is. We have a look through the field, and you can see that a couple of drivers are a little bit beaten and banged up in this race. It's one that you do expect to have a lot more close panel racing. Atinides has been able to get his car back out onto the racetrack, so we're right along board with him as he works himself down the hill. This is probably one of the scariest corners in all of Australian racing. Atinides all the way down in P number 18 in this event. That is down 11 spots from where he started. But it'll be interesting to note, pit entry here, that's not going to be too hard. Pit exit is where race control were very, very, very specific on their wording. You'll notice that you've got 2 pit exits. The first one we've actually just gone past already. This is the second of the pit exit lanes. It merges immediately onto the apex of turn number 1. There's got a little bit of 2-wide racing going on further down the field. It's between Neil Kemp and Fahim Atinides. Atinides working himself on the outside, so work themselves in towards that first corner once again, and Atinides will indeed move ahead now of the driver of Neil Kemp, who runs himself in that 18th position for the time being. But the race control were very, very specific. If you can use that first pit exit lane, come out onto the racetrack and cause an incident, you will be penalised. It is as simple as that, as we ride along board with Ricardo Farah in that number 15 car, currently running himself in P number 6. As you can see, he's got himself Fabled Supreme just ahead of him, about 3 tenths per second, as Miko Nassi still leads away from Phillip Burr. He's actually got that gap up now to half a second, and you've got to pay attention if you're Phillip Burr. You cannot allow Miko Nassi to pull away, because it is a track which relies so heavily on the draft. If you lose it, well, it's pretty much going to be game over for you. Rear end of your pack, Ricardo Farah putting that pressure on Fabled Super. They are starting to lose touch with the top 4 drivers. There you can see your second pack. Paul Malocas, Florian Fudel, separated by just 3 tenths per second, right on board with the driver third in line. That is Paul Malocas, as Brian Dyer has been able to get himself back past Florian Fudel in that battle for the 8th position, as they work themselves down towards the final corner once again. As we'll get a look at our aerial coverage brought to you today by Antoine Design, and we should be able to show you exactly what we mean by this pit entry and pit exit rule. The drivers just working themselves now down towards the start finish line, and you'll notice in the exit of pit road there are two merge lanes. That's the first one, you can see drivers just going past it now. That merges directly onto the racetrack. Now the second one, it's not that much more difficult. You go in a straight line and you just hit the apex on the outside of turn number 1. So drivers shouldn't feel the need take that first pit exit lane, unless of course there are slow traffic ahead of them, which they feel might be a little bit less confident coming out onto turn number 1. It's Phillip Subran going side by side right now with that driver of Ricardo Farah. This is a battle for position as Subran has lost that spot. He now falls down to the 6th position, rear end of that front train. Leon Fodor lining up a pass as well on the driver of Brian Dahl as they head themselves down in towards turn number 4, and this time by Florian Fodor once again moves himself up. Now they are catching that front group 10th at a time. Last time by Florian Fodor does himself a 1:47.224, his fastest lap of the race. Phillip Subran ahead of him on the racetrack did himself a 1:46.965, so was faster that last lap, although Fodor, they're working together right now to just try and use a slingshotting technique. It's something similar to what you sometimes see in NASCAR, to try and work themselves back up towards the front of the pack. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this second pack of drivers working together to quote Rachel Wright-Foot or Jared Waltrip, co-opetition, try and move themselves a little bit further up through the field, but the gap is currently standing at 1.6 seconds. They need to get realistically within about 0.2 of a second, but, well, we've lost the front pack. Front 3 drivers have pulled away now. So you can see Frank Winter currently scored in that 3rd place. The gap between himself and Enzo Cantor in 4th, up to 2.8 seconds. So these guys aren't going to catch the front pack. They're going to catch the new second pack, which are now separated. In fact, they are going to probably catch them in the next lap or so, as, well, there is the gap between Winter and Leigh Burt at 0.6 of a second. But then Farah has got Enzo Cantor company as they work themselves down in towards turn 1. Phillip Subran, rear end of that pack, and there you can see Brian Dahl has actually got himself. He's going to push very wide. This is a very scary place to do it. Brian Dahl, oh, he's going to lose himself so much time. He's lost the draft to all of these guys. The question's going to be, will he have momentum to keep some of these drivers behind? The answer to that question is going to be yes. That is Jerry Miller, who is just behind him. But, well, that has cost 3 seconds to Brian Dahl in the space of 1 corner. Get ourselves another look at that one. There we are then, that run down in towards turn number 1 for Brian Dahl. It looked as though he just went a little bit too wide on the exit of the corner. He missed the curb, really. That pushed him out onto the grass, and it's so difficult. It's a bit like Mosport, really, running through the grass here. It's so difficult to control the car. Brian Dahl does a sterling job of getting it back onto the racetrack. Otherwise, he would have been forced to serve a 15-second stop-and-go penalty by race control if he had cut across the apex of turn number 2. But for Brian Dahl, that means that his day, really, the chance of him getting a top 5 are over for now. We'll get ourselves one more look then from our aerial coverage as they work themselves down in towards turn 1. They can see Dahl nicely. He just slides through the centre of the corner. That pushes him wide. And from that point, he has to make sure he gets that car to the right-hand side. He has to take the entirety of turn number 2. Otherwise, as I said, he would have compounded his issues, getting himself a penalty from race control. He did do that, and that is why he still scored inside your top 10, albeit in the 9th position for the time being. And that is a shame for him, even though he is still up 2 places from where he qualified. Of course, a couple of drivers in the mid-pack here involved in that incident at the very start of the race. Ganassi still leads the way then in your battle for the race lead. 14 laps to go. We have completed 8 of them right now. And one of the things about this race, because we've had a safety car, is when will these drivers hit pit road? What it does is it's opened up that window just a little bit. Some drivers might be very good at saving fuel. There's a lot of undulation here, especially down in turn number 10. You can pretty much put the clutch in, not use any fuel at all, and that will give you the opportunity to save quite a bit. We now ride along board with the driver of Paul Maloka, has currently scored in P number 8. He was catching up to the rear of Peter Clayton a moment ago. As Enzo Cantor and Ricardo Farah, they're going side by side just ahead, and it will be Cantor who loses out there. Ricardo Farah moving himself up 1 spot on the racetrack. We'll get ourselves a second look at that one then, as we ride along board with the driver of Enzo Cantor. We'll circle that camera around. Ricardo Farah has now been able to get past. Note, that is the damage to the number 34 car on the rear. That was caused by his contact with Hima Tanides on the opening lap of the race. As you can see, Cantor just losing a little bit in straight line speed. That allowed that number 15 machine to go around the inside in turn number 3. Get yourself the momentum through there. It means you can sweep by, get himself clear traffic into turn number 4. And that is why Enzo Cantor is now down into the 5th spot on the racetrack. Rubber back, David Stefani and Paolo Zeroni battling it out for position. This is for P number 12, P number 13. Just as we said that, Stefani messes up the run through Lukey Height just a little bit. That allows a bit of breathing space for Paolo Zeroni in that number 72 Tommy Hilfiger machine. They work themselves now down towards the final corner once again. And we have a look from the rear then. Actually, we'll look from the front of Paolo Zeroni. Currently working himself through that final corner. Now, look at the speed chart here. Not lifting at all through that final corner. It's always a sight to see. Cars, be it these cars, be it the Dallara IndyCar, be it the Williams FW31, all going completely flat out through there. It's Peter Clayson, Paul Malukas going side by side in towards turn 1. Clayson going to lose the position there to Malukas as they come through turn 1. It's a nice little 3-horse scrap, and I think they know now that their chance of getting a top 5 is limited, and they have all started going for it. We ride along board of that driver of Peter Clayson right now, although Carthage Pie has just had himself he's on pit road actually. So Carthage Pie had himself a moment, I think, trying to enter pit road. He was very early into that pit window. We'll get ourselves another look from him then as he comes onto pit road. He's actually going to make himself a pit stop. So Carthage Pie, the first driver on pit road, and we can't see very well from that angle. We'll just have a look to see whether he had any damage to his car. It did look clean all 4 corners, just getting himself some fuel. He's the first of the drivers to pit here, and we talk about how wide that pit window is, especially as we've had ourselves a safety car here today, which means these drivers didn't have to be full power down the very, very long front straightaway. They've got Subran still, but now battling it out with Enzo Cantor as they work themselves towards Lukey Heights down this amazing turn number 10. You literally just fall off the cliff here, and it's not as bad, the elevation change, as you see in certain other cars, certain other open wheel cars, but it's still bad. You still got to control the back end as you rise yourself up the crest and then go immediately back down it. Subran running himself in P number 6. He has moved up a total of 1 place in this race so far, and he is just putting that pressure onto Enzo Cantor to work themselves out the final corner. Mikko Nassi is on pit road, so he is the first of the drivers to blink here on pit road very early. We're not even towards halfway yet, despite us having a caution. This is a very early stop for Mikko Nassi. Into his pit box he comes then. Let's have a look at the pit stop time for him. He overshoots as well. That cost him about 1.5 seconds. Getting to make himself a service, but this is going to be potentially critical for him. 1.5 seconds on a track like Phillip Island can be the difference between P1 and P5. Nassi out of pit road, 11.1 second stop for him, but note the extra time is on his pit box, and note he is taking this longer of the pit exit lines. It's not that much worse. You just got to be careful when you rejoin the track right about here that you've got no drivers on the outside of the racetrack. Race control, as I said, say that you've got to have responsibility if you are the driver coming back onto the racetrack, especially on that first pit exit lane, that you make a clean pass, and if there's another driver, you've got to give them way. So Nassi has made himself a pit stop. A couple of other drivers are down the field. Matthew Daniels made a stop, of course, that's enforced from earlier on. Carthage Pie, Paolo Zeroni have each made pit stops. So you can see Carthage Pie, his pit stop time, 12.1 seconds. Paolo Zeroni, an 11.9 second stop for him. As behind, you've got Dustin Kessinger, who's made himself a couple of stops. And also for Hema Tanides, who, of course, we talked about a little bit earlier on in today's webcast. This is a look at your front 2 drivers. Philippe Burr has been able to pull out a 2-second advantage over Frank Winter as they work themselves through the S's once again. Let's ride on board with Winter. This is actually out of the final corner. None of your top 2 drivers coming in this time by. So Mikko Nassi came in very, very early. Fabot Subran is right on the rear of... he was right on the rear, actually, of Enzo Cantor. But Enzo Cantor has come onto pit road this time by. So Cantor, the next driver to make a pit stop. And this was in the number 34 car. Don't forget, he did get some damage to his rear wing, which you can now see on your screen. So it'll be interesting to see if they try and do any quick repairs to this car before it comes back out onto the racetrack. So there we are. A look at Enzo Cantor making himself a pit stop even. And let's have a look at his pit stop time. It's Matthew Daniels is either on pit road or he's just had an incident. We'll just keep an eye out on that one. But here's the pit stop time for Enzo Cantor coming up on your screen. 13.3 seconds back out and away for him. There you are. Jerry Miller making himself a pit stop. So he's falling down the timing and scoring sheet. So Matthew Daniels did have himself, by my reckoning, an incident. Getting ourselves another look at this, and wow, caught back end of that one, but that was a spin there for Matthew Daniels. We'll try and get ourselves another look at that one for you. And this was, I think, going up the crest that we were talking about. Let's get ourselves another look. And this is indeed as they work themselves towards, yeah, up the hill, up the crest. We're talking about the back end of the car there, just sticking itself out. Poor Matthew Daniels spinning that car around, and he has to go down the crest a long way. The car stepping out on him, rearing the car stepping out. And of course, he's had himself a miserable day here today after qualifying so high up in the field, down 18 spots from where he started this race, and he is almost a minute now behind your race leader. So out front, it is still Phillip Labor who leads the way. Frank Winter in the second position. As you can see, they work themselves down towards the final corner, and we are going to have both your top two drivers stay out. Then you can see third place, Ricardo Ferrer staying out. Superin staying out this time by Paul Malocas is staying on the racetrack, as is Peter Clayson. No, Clayson's going to come on towards pit road to add another driver to the list of those coming in, as we are now past halfway distance. And it'll be fascinating to see just how much fuel some of these guys, especially at the front of the field, have saved. Can Phillip Labor claim victory here? And he's lost quite a number of races actually through the pit stop sequence. That is one that we will definitely have to bear in mind. So you've got a lot more drivers though on towards pit road. We'll run this entire sequence for you as Clayson there is another driver who overshoots his pit box. We'll zoom in on him as he's making himself a service right now. There is a live look at pit road. Peter Clayson's on pit road. Florian Fodel's on pit road, as is Rob Adams and David Stefani. 12.9 seconds for Clayson. Florian Fodel completing his service. He'll be back out and away. Long stop, 15.3 seconds. He comes back out. Rod Adams there, 14.8 second stop for him. And finally, we have ourselves, Joey Miller's made himself a stop. But David Stefani there, back onto the racetrack in 15.6 seconds. Let's have a look then at all of these drivers. They come back out onto the racetrack. Again, using that longer pit road. They want to play it safe here, but we'll turn that camera around for Stefani, and there's no traffic behind him, so he's cleared to merge. Although one of the other drivers, I believe that was Kessinger, was right alongside Matthew Daniels as they came through turn number one. There you can see Daniels in that number 3 machine, who has of course made himself a pit stop, as Phillip Labor is still leading this race. Captain himself and Frank Winter up now to 2.5 seconds. Phillip Labor going to come on towards pit road then with 10 laps to go, and you've also going to get Frank Winter onto pit road at the same time. Let's ride on board with Phillip Labor as he heads himself into his pit box, nicely down to pit road speed, 70 kilometers an hour here at this event. And well, this is a chance for Labor to get himself towards winner circle, which has eluded him a couple of times already this season. But let's get a look then as Labor slowing it down into his pit box. His up timer is a counting then for Phillip Labor, trying to find out where his competition of Miko Nassi is. We don't see him yet. A couple of other drivers coming towards pit road. I believe that is Nassi. Back end of your screen. Labor is out and away. This could well be close. At the moment, it is still Labor away from Nassi, but Nassi is going to go by. He's going to breeze by in towards turn number 1. 13.5 second stop for Phillip Labor. Miko Nassi only did an 11.1 second stop. He retakes the race lead with a 1.7 second advantage. Duncan Coppage on pit road, so he's going to complete his service in a moment's time. Got a couple of other people coming out of pit road. Francesco Tonin back out onto the racetrack. You also got Scott Hanley completing his service as well. 14 second stop there for Hanley. Tonin out of the way in 12.8 seconds. Neil Kemp completing his service, 26.7 second stop for him, as we have a look at him coming back out onto the racetrack, and he's going to take the quick option. So there is Neil Kemp taking the quick option, but he's got to be careful. There's no one behind him, so he won't get penalised for that one. However, if there was a driver on the racetrack, he would have had to have yielded to him. So the important thing is now is that we've got a couple of people who haven't pitted. Brian Dole, I believe, is one. Paul Malocas is the other. We're looking on board with both of them. This is on the exit of turn number 10. The gap between these two drivers, 3 tenths per second. They will have to come towards pit road, in my opinion, in the next 2 laps time. You can see that Dole is going to come in, as is Paul Malocas. So another 2 drivers coming in pretty much identically. They are going to want to get themselves as quickly onto pit road, and Dole does gain himself, in my opinion, about half a tenth there, very quickly onto pit road. He is being aggressive as they work themselves then down to 70 kilometers an hour. Once again, they will lose the race lead here, but they are actually side by side, and Dole, there we are, he's going to come down into his pit box second. But Malocas, he's going to have to be careful when he comes out of pit road, I think, because they could very easily be side by side. There's Miko Nassi. He leads the way once again. Brian Dole, let's focus our attention. Dole's going to get it there by just a couple of moments there. Brian Dole does come out ahead of the driver, Paul Malocas, able to jump him on the sequence of pit stops. Dole moves up one position, but it is far from over between these two drivers. They come back out onto the track. Actually, no, Malocas, well, I've not seen this one in a while. Malocas has just fallen his car off the side of the racetrack. That is incredible. Let's get another look at this one then from Paul Malocas. I'm not sure what he was doing, but Malocas comes back out, you see, nicely. I mean, and he hits the wall. Malocas losing steering there, and his car just literally falls off the edge of the racetrack. I have not seen anything like that in a very long time. Well, Malocas, after getting beaten on the pit stop, then ends up making contact with the wall. I'm not sure if he was just changing some settings in his car or whatever, but Malocas is classified as out of this event. There's your race leader. There is Miko Nasi. He will officially be classified at the lead, at the start finish line, which will come up in about 20 seconds time. There's a gap between himself and Philippe Burr. All drivers have now made themselves a pit stop, and here are your biggest movers and shakers in the race so far. Malocas up 4 positions, Ferrara up 6. Then you got yourself Clayson up 6 positions, Miller and Dole both up 3 spots each. As we have a look from the rear, looking on board even with Miko Nasi, 2.3 second advantage to Philippe Burr. And let's ride a lap on board of him with 7 to go this time by. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. There's a look on board with Miko Nasi, who leads this race. He has led 11 of the laps here today. 1 minute 46.495 there. His last lap. We did just have a pass. Neil Kemp and Duncan Coppage swapping positions. Coppage now in the 18th position. He has moved up a total of 2 spots in this race. Neil Kemp is up 4 positions. Both of them now safely inside of your top 20. Brian Dahl, Enzo Cantor, we've seen this one before in the event here today. As we have a look on board with the driver of Brian Dahl down through turn 1. They work themselves once again. Brian Dahl trying to move himself closer towards the top 5. It doesn't look as though at this stage of the race either of them will get themselves into the top 5. It'll be interesting though to see the fuel situation from Miko Nasi. He was 11.1 seconds on his pit stop, and he pitted very early into this event. Maybe he knew he had just a little bit more straight line speed than the driver of Philippe Burr. They can actually see Miko Nasi's pit stop time, and they can see the one for Philippe Burr's. We just had ourselves an incident on track, I believe. Trying to figure out whom that might have been, but we did just have a driver going very, very slowly a moment ago. So we'll try and get ourselves another look at that one for you. I believe it's in the David Stefani area of the racetrack. We're just going to zoom our camera out, see if we can figure out anything that happened. Yeah, we had a driver go off there, and I believe that's Paolo Zeroni. There you are, down in turn number 2. So that number 72 car falling down a couple of spots now, and that is, he's still up 12 positions in this race, so good run overall by him. But we'll get another look at that one on board of him. It looks as though that he just messed up his steering completely, caught the grass on the inside of the corner, tried to straighten it out, and that Hitachi car there, well, getting himself into a full 360 spin. Luckily, his own teammate didn't hit him there, because he was very closely separated on the racetrack. There you could actually see him. But, well, a bit of a tough moment there for that driver, Apollo Zeroni, in the number 12 machine, but he is still going along, plodding along. Philippe Burr, though, he has started to fall back from the rear. Miko Nasi last time by 146.0 for the driver on Miko Nasi. That was within 3/1000ths of a second of his best lap of the race. Philippe Burr, a 146.6, and again and again and again. You see in this series, Philippe Burr, so good on the opening stage of this race, but fades through that sequence of pit stops right on board of him. As you just have a look at the speed chart there, that he's heading 185 kilometers an hour as they work themselves down in towards turn number 4. That's what they're touching. They will get better speeds in most conditions in towards turn 1, the fastest turn 1, I think, in the world outside of any of the ovals. It's such a breathtaking sight to see them do it. As you can see, Philippe Burr still plodding along, 2.9 seconds now behind your race leader Miko Nasi, as they work themselves up through the S's once again. And one of the things as well, whenever you get yourself a safety car, there is the risk that drivers might underfuel their cars by mistake. There's Farah still battling it out with the driver of Frank Winter, 1.5 seconds separating them. Then a further 2 seconds back is Playbolt Subaru. Then you can see Enzo Cantor a further 3.8 seconds back, and this is a nice little scrap going on as we have a look from the rear. It is the driver of Enzo Cantor as they work themselves through the S's, through Lukey Heights once again. We ride it along board where Enzo Cantor, Brian Dahl is stalking him right now as they work themselves down the hill. We still have ourselves a total of 24 drivers on the lead lap. Essentially, if you're scored on the lead lap, sorry, if you're scored in the race, then you are still on the lead lap. There you can see Paul Malokas rear of the field. We saw his incident earlier on. Surprisingly, I do think he must be classified as 1 lap down by now. Just having a look to see where he is in relation to other drivers. He is actually catching Johan Hallberg, who's in 23rd place. 1.5 seconds separating these two drivers. But the gap to the race lead, well, it's 1 minute 33 seconds. In fact, Malokas is still on the lead lap, as are all the drivers in this event. As we go to pay our attention back to Brian Dawes, right on board with him then, and there you can see drivers working themselves in towards turn number 2. Just 3.5 laps of this event to go, and he's found a way past, actually. We're cycling our camera around, and he just managed to find a way past. Incredible stuff, but this one, I believe, is potentially far from over. Here we are then, another look down in towards turn number 1. This is Brian Dahl, who he just finds a way to slot in that car down to the inside. Nicely moved there by Brian Dahl. He found an opening down in towards turn number 2, and I think he really did catch Enzo Cantor napping. Of course, Cantor was able to get that damage repaired to him. We just keep it with this one there. You can see that out of the corner, it was still advantage to Brian Dahl, and that is still the case. Half a second separating these two drivers, but Dahl has moved himself now up, back 1 position. Zeroni there, and this is with David Stefani, and Zeroni's going to move himself up a spot and loops it around. Not the first time we've seen him do this one today. Paolo Zeroni has had himself at least 2 spins in this race in that number 72 car. He just got himself past the driver, just got himself past a driver. I'll just try and remember who that one is. We ride on board with him. We should see from here, that's at number 26 machine of Rob Adams. Down into the hairpin, back end, just stepping out for Paolo Zeroni. Another incident for him in this race here today. He is not going to be a happy bunny with that one, and it shows because his performance, well, he is still up positions, but he could have been knocking on the door of the top 10 had he have not have had those moments. And Cantor hasn't allowed the driver ahead of him to get any further ahead on the racetrack. That is Brian Dahl. Let's have a look at the speed then. 205 kilometers an hour hitting turn number 1. That has got the draft as well. You see in this car they are having to lift through turn number 1. In the Williams FW31 they are flat out through that corner. But Cantor starting to drop back a little bit there. His tyres might be starting to give up on him as they work themselves through turn number 2 once again. He's the fastest lap to the race so far. Miko Nasi with a 146.074. Philippe Burr, just 1/1000th of a second faster on his fastest lap of the race. Although Le Burr has been struggling for pace recently. His last lap time was a 1:47.4. 4. Maybe Phillip Bert is saving a bit of fuel. There is his pit stop time, it's 13.5. You don't expect much from him there. As you can see, he works himself now. This is through towards Lukey Heights once again. Le Bert, and the gap between himself and the race leader continues to grow. It's now up to 5.8 seconds, and Le Bert, I do think, is potentially saving a bit of fuel. He works himself then out of turn number 10. And that's a driver who potentially has a chance to catch him, Ricardo Ferrer, as they work themselves down the hill. Now, Ferrer's only got himself a 1.6 second advantage over Winter. He was able to jump ahead of Winter through that sequence of pit stops. You can see that Ferrer is up 6 positions in this race so far here today, as we get a look as he works himself out the final corner. We talked about how pit stops can be so crucial here, especially if you have a safety car. I am worried at 147.8 last time by Phillip Bert, that Le Bert is desperately trying to save a little bit of fuel. We'll have to ride along board with him actually, and this will give us a good indicator. Let's listen in. The turn 2 won't give you much, but as you work yourself through turn number 3, this will give us the opportunity. You can see he's just lifting off a little bit. Let's have a look at the speed chart. We know that these drivers hit about 185 kilometers an hour through this section. Le Bert slow to get onto the gas here. I do think he's definitely running a little bit slower than what he sees from others. Of course, he doesn't have the benefit of the draft. Braking very early. He's lifting and he's coasting. Phillip Bert is desperately trying to save a bit of gas here, and this is a difficult thing on a track which is so fast normally. There's a gap then between P2 and P3. It is 3.4 seconds. Last time by, Ricardo Ferrer 1.2 seconds faster. But as it stands, Ferrer will have not have enough time. There's a lap and a half to go in this event. But if Le Bert runs out, then Ferrer is going to have to be known about this, because as soon as you get out of turn number 10, then you are pretty much flat out to the line. Let's ride along board with Ferrer. Let's have a look at that gap go down as they work themselves now up the hill for what is the penultimate time in this event. You're going to get the white flag out this time by for Miko Nassi. Down towards the final corner, he will come then to take the white flag this time by. One more lap to go. They can see Miko Nassi then coming down towards start-finish line. The gap between Le Bert and Ferrer is currently scored as 3.3 seconds. Let's have a look on board with Phillip Bert again. Is he still saving fuel? Well, he's up to 200 kilometers an hour, so that means he's okay. But it's that lifting and coasting that we noticed on the last lap. That was the issue. He did himself a 137.3 last time by. He might think that he's done enough as he works himself towards turn number 1. He pushes a little bit wide there. A heart-stopping moment for Phillip Bert. 3.3 seconds the gap between himself and Ricardo Ferrer. Down in the pack, we have got ourselves an outstanding battle that is going on. This is between Scott Hanley. He runs in P number 14. You can see behind him, he's got himself Duncan Coppage and Francesco Tonin right behind him as well. 3 drivers going to start the last lap, nose to tail to tail. Down these drivers head towards turn 1. I love this camera angle. As you can see, it's going to be Coppage going to look down to the outside as they come down in towards turn number 1. And it's going to be too wide. Who's going to be the better of the braver? It's going to be Coppage working himself around the outside. He's going to move himself up 1 position. Francesco Tonin there in the number 53 car, not able to capitalise on that one as they work themselves through turn number 2 once again. You've also got Zeroni. He's still charging, battling with Neil Kemp. And of course, we've seen Zeroni make some incidents down in turn number 2 and turn number 4 before this. Well, he's going to push wide again, and that will cost him the chance to use that draft, use that slipstream to try and get past Neil Kemp on this, the final lap of the race. Phillip Bert, we're keeping an eye on him. He's got that gap at 3.5 seconds. It looks like he might have done enough. Miko Nassi works himself out of the final corner. He will claim victory in the 3rd round of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup here on RaceSpotTV. Miko Nassi is a winner in that number 25 car. Phillip Bert, has he got enough? It looks like he does. He is slowing himself down, but he does cross the start-finish line, and I think that was all he had. Yeah, he's out of fuel. So he just made it to the start-finish line. We're going to get ourselves, listen to the engine note there for Phillip Bert out the final corner. Well, he upshifts. He was okay in the upshift. Then heads, and the engine cuts out right here. So it looks as though Phillip Bert just had enough fuel to get to the end. It was Ricardo Ferrer who came home in the 3rd position. 4th spot will go to Frank Winter. Then Phillip Superman in the 5th spot. Brian Dahl in 6th, and Enzo Cantor will run through your final race results in a moment's time. We had ourselves a bit of a last-minute battle going on between Duncan Coppage and the driver of Paolo Zeroni. We work on board then on replay at this one as Duncan Coppage, I think, yeah, Duncan Coppage out of fuel as well. So Coppage didn't make it to the line there. He was battling tooth and nail in the last couple of laps, and you can see Duncan Coppage going to get himself passed by a couple of people, and also Francesco Tonin did get himself past Neil Kemp on the final lap of this event. Let's get ourselves another look at that one if we can. Well, we're cycling that camera around. You can see there that Francesco Tonin is going to work himself ahead of Duncan Coppage as he runs out of fuel coming up the hill. Scary place to do it, a bit like at Road America. Let's have a look, see if we can figure out the one. As we saw a little bit further down the field, I can't actually see it, so it might not have happened, who knows. But Duncan Coppage was the big loser in that one, dropping down some valuable positions in the final lap of the race. So then, ladies and gentlemen, I think that Zeroni might have been out of fuel as well. Or he might have got himself an incident in the final lap of the race. I'm just trying to figure out whether he got any damage. His car looks like it's crab walking a little bit. That's a term that we normally use when something's not all that right on the car. You can see he's crab walking towards the start-finish line. But ladies and gentlemen, let's run you through your final race results from this, the 3rd round of the championship. Mika Nassi claiming victory once again here. This time by 8.2 seconds over Philippe Leber. Leber running out of fuel right at the line. Ricardo Ferrer in 3rd place. Frank Winter in 4th. Phillip Subran in 5th. Brian Dahl, Enzo Cantor, Peter Clayson, Florian Fodel, and Karthik Pai rounding out your top 10. And then we've got ourselves Joe Miller in 11th. David Stefani in 12th. Rob Adams in 13th. Francesco Tonin in the 14th position. Neil Kemp, Paolo Zeroni, Matthew Daniels, Duncan Coppage, Edward Cavalier, and Dustin Kessinger rounding out your top 20. Duncan Coppage running out of fuel through Lukey Heights, and that cost him an absolute boatload of positions as he crawled past the start-finish line. And there's your final look at the results. Paul Malukas recovering to finish ahead of a couple of drivers. We had 23 finish on the lead lap. Asinides out. He was classified as 1 lap down. Alex Saunders and Ludwig Giddy are your retirees. We'll step aside for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back with post-race coverage after these messages. You're watching RaceSpotTV.
Monza is a very historic track. It's been around since the 20s, and it's gone through several permutations since then. We're also bringing forward a number of configurations. So there's chicanes that they've installed since the track's early days. So they can use original, very high-speed configurations of the track where the cars would just blow through where the chicanes are today, or they could use a more modern version. So it's a pretty cool, compelling track. The unique thing about Monza is it has a road course, but it also has a high-speed oval. And that high-speed oval can be run by itself. The Grand Prix course can be run by itself. And they also can be run together in a combined circuit, which is very unique and special in motorsports. This was one of the more challenging projects that we've undertaken. It was essentially building 2 tracks in one. It took a lot of time and a lot of care was put into it, but we're really happy about the end result, and we think that people have a lot of fun driving it.
cars are lined up on the grid. The iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. We are underway. They all come down into turn one for the first time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here to RaceSpotTV for post-race coverage of the third round of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup, where Mikko Nassi was able to survive a little bit of an incident on pit road where he overshot his pit stall to claim his victory. And we are joined by Mikko Nassi right now. Mikko, take us through the first part of that race, starting off, because you switched lead with Phillip a couple of times. It looks very close in the first part of the race.
Yep, thanks, Will. I knew Phillip was right on my pace. I've been racing with him a few times in the official series, so I was just happy to get qualifying ahead of him. I think there was a few thousandths in it. And then first part of the race, I decided to come into the pits early to hopefully disrupt the order a little bit.
Well, you were able to save a little bit of fuel under that safety car. How much fuel were you able to save, and how important do you think that was come pit stop? Because you did pit very early.
Yeah, in the end it didn't make much of a difference because we still have the maximum we can fuel in, so we couldn't really fill up any less. Or, well, you filled up a bit less, but didn't really play into it.
And then...
kept...
Oh, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I kept the same strategy anyway.
Well, we ended up seeing you come out ahead of Phillip Labor. How worried were you that he was going to catch you before he started dropping back after about 2 to 3 laps in that final run to the flag?
Yeah, I mean, first I was sure he'd be right on me or a little bit ahead of me because of my pit stop mistake. But then, luckily, when I did come out, it was just around where he barely has any draft. So I just had to put a few solid laps in and hopefully drop back.
Well, it's a well-deserved victory for you here today at Phillip Island, which is one of the fastest races that we go to all season. Next time out, we do a little bit of a change of scenery. We go to the ultra-fast and bumpy Sebring. Will we see you there?
Possibly. Have a fairly busy weekend coming up, but should be able to make it.
Well, if we do see you, we look forward to seeing you. Mikko Nassi coming home with the race win here today. Phillip Labor, again, second place for him. And, well, Phillip, the start of the race was good. The end part of it, not so much.
No, I ran out of fuel. I underfueled. I don't know why, because I did my calculations as usual, and I thought I took enough, but my spotter said 6 laps before the end. You have 5 laps remaining, and I checked and I double checked, and he was right this time. So I had to lift and try to conserve some fuel. In the end, I just made it to the finish line.
How hard is that to do on one of the fastest racetracks that the Skip Barbers ever go to?
Well, you lose a lot of time when you lift and coast on this track. I think I lost a second and a half per lap, and I wasn't really trying that hard. It's just very difficult on this track.
Well, once again, it's a podium finish for you, but not the result necessarily you would have wanted. Sebring next time out, you're hoping for a change of fortunes?
I'm always hoping, but there are always some people who are quicker than me, so I can always try.
Phillip Labor coming home in the second position here today. A little bit further down the field after being involved in incidents early on in the race was Matthew Daniels, coming home in the 16th place overall, getting a spot at the very end of this race after getting himself past Duncan Coppage. But, well, Matthew, take us through the first couple of laps of your event.
Yeah, suffered a contact early on in the race, first lap. Then the caution was thrown, and I forgot that you can't go straight into the pits when the caution comes out. So I got a penalty for that. I had to pit again once the race had restarted. And I couldn't get enough fuel in, so that I wouldn't have to make another stop. So I had to rejoin well behind the rest of the field. So I just had to try and salvage as many positions as I could.
You got one right at the very end. I'm sure in a series where every point matters, you're at least glad to get yourself past Duncan Coppage in literally the final corner of the final lap of the event.
Yeah, it's quite good to salvage at least a few points. It could have been a lot worse. I could have crashed out or been disqualified or any other thing that would have resulted in no points at all. So, yeah.
Well, after such a good qualifying, I'm sure you're disappointed by your overall race result. But next week, it's another track at Sebring. We've seen you at Sebring before. We've seen you being good at Sebring. What's your looks and your outlook as we head forward of another week?
Hopefully I can turn things around at Sebring. It's a track I know as opposed to this track which was relatively new to me. So hopefully I can do quite well at Sebring. We'll wait and see.
Well, Matthew Daniels coming home in the 16th place here today. Don't forget, it's another packed week here on RaceSpotTV with Monday Night Skippies tomorrow night, then followed on by Champions of the Futures World Touring Car Championship. They into the second half of their season. Round number 5, that is on Tuesday. The iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series returns with its 4th round at Road America. That's on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. On the same day, we've got ourselves the ISOWC Pocono 500 before wrapping up another week's of coverage with the Skip Barber 2K World Cup from Sebring International Raceway in exactly 7 days' time. This has been a RaceSpotTV presentation of the 3rd round of the Skip Barber 2K World Cup here on RaceSpotTV. Myself, Will Vincent, we shall talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.
Racing. Oh, they collide! Holy mother Rush, Andy.